Combating supply chain risk. Well, joining us to speak about that today is Mike Maris, Senior Director, Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics at Motorola Solutions. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much, Russell. It's great to be here.
Mike, I want to turn to the level of supply chain risk and ask you, how do you see that as having changed over the last several years?
Well, obviously, there's much that's happened in the economies. As we look at different companies, over 3/4 of the companies talk about supply chain risk has really increased in their areas, and they're looking at different ways to how to manage that and really get ahead of the whole risk factor.
Well, let's move on to mitigation of that risk. What are these companies doing today?
The major progressive companies are really looking at how do they model supply chain risk. So in other words, they're looking at what can they do to plan what risk could evolve out there. And part of that is using simulation, trying to build models to look at the risk, to try to forecast what the risk may be, and then have solutions for that risk out of those simulation models. The key being, the better the model, the better chance of mitigating risk.
Is that what you refer to when you talk about visibility networks?
Well, with visibility, especially with the supply chain, what we're finding with most of our customers is that they want to see the visibility of the product from the time that it's manufactured to the time that they receive it, and maybe even further than that. One of the things that we see is that technology is helping that visibility. What used to be in the past where you would get products shipped to you and it could go into a dark hole and not know where it's at for several days, could be weeks. We now want to see the visibility of that product all along the way. Much like you would see if you were buying something from Amazon, to where you see it when the order's placed, the order's picked up, as it goes through the shipping and routing, even to the delivery to your home. So much of what we saw with the business to consumer, we're seeing now business to business.
Well, let's drill down into that and talk about technology more. How are these companies utilizing technology to mitigate the risk that they inevitably are going to encounter?
Right. So having the use of equipment, whether it be mobile computers, whether it's using RFID, which we're seeing much more now, the utilization of GPS, what we're now able to do is ascertain where that product is during the entire supply chain. So points where it used to go into a dark hole has been covered by using apparently things like scanning with a mobile computer, into where now we can look at it almost on a regular basis by using RFID without any involvement of any kind of equipment. So those kind of things are adding to it, as well as GPS tells me exactly where it's at any given period of time.
You know, right now, many people are of the opinion that, well, I prefer to use my own device in the enterprise or in my efforts to track inventory, or whatever it is whatever my tasks are that I'm assigned to. I want to bring my own tablet, I want to bring my own smartphone, I want to bring my own device. I guess my question to you is this: what are the risks that are inherent in this BYOD world, and what are companies able to do about it?
So the biggest thing that BYOD has done has enabled more people to have more ways to communicate where the supply chain is, where their inventory is.
So it is a good thing.
It is a good thing. But now on the downside of that is, how do I control the information that they are touching with that device? And that's where we see it fall off. In that security around inventory, security about your company's data is one of the key factors that's driving why people are looking at different ways to manage devices such as mobile computers, and why some companies are looking at maybe BYOD is not always the best way to manage that. So having control there is very key for most companies.
If we turn to offshoring, let's explore the risks that people are going to encounter in that kind of environment. What would you say they are?
Well, we've experienced some interesting things with offshoring. Obviously, as labor market continued to build here, especially in North America, companies looked overseas, they looked south of the border to be able to manufacture things. What we're seeing now is an influx of people looking to bring what we would say nearshoring, bringing that product production back closer. It may be closer to United States and Mexico, Canada, but bringing it closer where they have better control of the actual supply chain and how they move that product from manufacturing to the end consumer. So we're seeing more people look at having control of supply chain means now that they're not going to offshore as much, they're going to nearshore as opposed to that.
But still, they're no doubt are advised to be aware of any potential risks, even if they are bringing it back closer to home.
Absolutely. But once you know where your raw materials are to manufacture something, you know where the finished goods come out, you have a much better chance if you don't have that long lag period of lead time in between the time that it's actually shipped off from the manufacturer and gets to the end user.
Inventory and production, let's talk about that. Any other risks inherent in those environments there that we haven't touched on?
Well, of course there are. There's plenty of things. And part of the risk about inventory production is, do I have the right inventory at the right place at the right time? And knowing that, again, goes a lot back to modeling, being able to understand where that product should be, and then being able to move and change that inventory no matter what state it's in, whether it be raw materials, or whether it be in manufacturing, or whether it be a finished product, but move that to the right place at the right time. So there are, again, many ways to manage that inventory if we see where it's at, if we have visibility and we control where it's going.
What are the pricing risks associated with inventory production?
Well, of course, too much inventory, we've seen this happen, leads to excess money being tied up in a warehouse, a facility. The opposite of that is if I have too little inventory, I'm not able to meet my customers' needs. So we have a fine balance there of trying to make sure that we have the right inventory at the right time, and again, using technology to manage that inventory to be able to tell me where the inventory is at any one time is very critical in this process.
Now, clearly, it is imperative that companies manage the end-to-end supply chain risks. So I guess here's the question: what are companies advised to do, and what are they doing to manage that?
Well, it's interesting where we're now starting to see a lot of niche markets exist where software companies are developing programs to help companies of large size as well as companies of smaller size manage that inventory process. And basically what they become is a pillar of information, that they're grabbing information about the inventory as it moves through the supply chain and then either putting it into a portal, a web-based program of some sort to allow that visibility to take place for that buyer, that person that's creating that inventory.
Mike, final question. Would you say most companies feel that they are doing a good job at managing these risks?
I think if you ask them and you were very serious about it, I think they would say they're scared about that they probably are not doing the best job that they could. And they're looking for ways to do that. They're looking for technology to help them with that, as well as software products to help them mitigate that risk, absolutely. So I think overall that gives a lot of hope out there for companies that, because this become a niche market, that software companies are starting to develop those products, that they know that they're going to have a better handle on their inventory going forward.
That is indeed a hopeful note to end on if they recognize that there's work to be done and they're willing to do so. Mike, thank you very much for taking out some time to visit with us today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Russell.
It's Mike Maris, Motorola Solutions, and speaking with us today about combating the risks, the many risks, in the supply chain. Well, thank you for watching.